right, so we're going to call our meeting to order. This is a special call meeting today, September 3rd. We have a few items on our agenda to discuss and vote on today, and I'll leave this to Mr. Davis to start our work session and go over the first item.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Rager, board members. The first thing we want to do is go ahead and just jump right into sports, and let's talk about where we are, where we've been, where we hope to go, and I'll give you my recommendation. And obviously, when we have our meeting, we'll have to go to an actual meeting before we vote on it. So right now, it's just an open discussion, but I'll kind of go through my thoughts first. And Kathy, you can jump in, or Jerry, or board members. We may talk over each other a little bit, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. So I'm just going to kind of jump straight in. Obviously, we're here. The one thing that we are going to vote on today is, do we allow fall sports to go forward? And are there concerns? Let me just start with that. Of course there are. We are ramping it up a little. We're going to the next level. We're now going to be intermingling with other teams some. So absolutely, that gives you pause. That makes you have a lot of soul searching and talk to a lot of folks and try to make sure you're doing the right thing. So yes, absolutely, we acknowledge that is something that is a concern. Safety is always a concern, and we've been having these conversations for a long time. So I want to acknowledge that right off the bat. Nothing is as straightforward as Facebook may have you believe, where it's either all this or all that. We live in some gray area. So yes, and we'll address all that later, but absolutely it is. We're not in school yet, and yet we're going to try to start sports. Now, I will say we hope to rectify the other part. We're going to meet next week, I think hopefully a week from tomorrow, and talk about trying to continue to hit that September 21st date on an AB schedule, which that's some guidance has changed on that, but we'll talk more about that later. So I acknowledge that. So having said that, let's move on forward. And what we want people to understand is the time that we put into trying to make this decision and trying to do right by our kids. That's what it all comes down to. We want to do right by our kids. I'm a former athletic director. I'm a dad of a student who's played, and so I get all that. And then also you want to keep them safe. We'll make sure we're doing this right. So we have talked to, and I'm going to take time to go through these, the Department of Public Health, State Health Department, local health department, Kentucky Board of Education, Kentucky Department of Education, Kentucky High School Athletic Association. I've spoken with superintendents of other districts pretty much every day. If not at least each week we meet. So we have looked at their guidance, discussed the guidance back and forth. I've talked to Kathy so many times. Kathy, I don't know, she keeps taking my calls. Thank you, Kathy. We keep going back and forth, and how can we do this in the right way? So the guidance is out there, and they tinkered with it, and we adjust as they do, and then we talk again. And so this is not something where we woke up yesterday and said, hey, we got to make a call on this. We have been dealing with this for over 2 months. So I'll talk more about that in a minute. We're one of the last, if not the last district to have this meeting. And the reason for that, I don't mind that. The reason for that is we were waiting on the very latest guidance, see our latest numbers here in the county, what's going on with cases, the whole bit. We have wanted to make a decision closer to time to try to make the most informed decision. So having said all that, I will tell you now, and we've talked individually with every one of you, I'm going to recommend that we allow this to go forward, and I'm going to explain why here just a little bit. So I want to go over some of the positives. I've talked about negatives. I've acknowledged that. Number one that I think really should weigh in here. I don't remember when we started this journey on sports. I think it was June. I lose track. But our coaches and our athletes are absolutely to be commended for the way they've handled everything up to this point. Jerry Hancock, and I hate bragging on Jerry Hancock, but I'm going to. Jerry's been amazing. We're in contact all the time. He's on top of it. Kathy's been involved every step of the way. And we started with, you could just meet with kids and look them in the eye and talk to them and all, because it's such a big deal mental health wise, not just physical. And we've added to it. There's been steps along the way. Now you can run, and now you can do this. And now we've moved to the last phase of where they can actually have some contact in practice. Now understand, to get into practice, there's requirements. You're doing the temperature checks. You're wearing the mask at all times when it's reasonable. You can't wear it every second. But everything I've heard, now you may see a rare picture out there, hey, they were too close or something. I understand. We're not perfect. I'm not perfect here. But I am so proud of our athletes. I am so proud of our coaches we started with crawling, and we crawled right. Then we started walking, and it felt like we walked right. And now it's time that we want to run a little. So I think one of the reasons that I got it right in my mind that it's right to move forward, even given the concerns we have, is that they've been doing this over 2 months. They've been working toward this point for a long time. So I want to commend them for that. That's a big thing in my mind. Number two, no one and no organization has recommended that we not do this. And I've watched it all. That we did have a recommendation to not go back to school. And you can say, well, what's the distinction? Well, we could talk about it and say 300 or 400 in a school is different than maybe 30 or 40 on a practice field or something. But, I'm not trying to get into that, because I understand both sides, guys. You can be reasonable and have a different opinion. I totally understand that. That's why I go back and forth in my mind. We all do. We want to do the right thing by our kids. But no one has done it. Not any of those organizations has said that. They have laid out guidelines and they keep tightening them. And I talked to Kathy, and Kathy will say, well, let's tighten it. And we've done that. So I want to say that. Our health department, I don't want to speak for Kathy. I'll let her speak in a minute. But they've been on board. Kathy has read a lot. And she's got a lot of other things on her plate. But she has read everything that I've sent to her, and she calls and we talk about it. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm confident that Kathy is where we are with this. This can be done with expectations. We'll get back to that. Such a big deal for these kids. We cannot undermine that. Now, we can't let kids do it just because they want to do it. But if we can work this in where we can make this happen, we're bringing some kids into our schools now. And a lot of it's mental health needs, special needs. We're able to service some of our kids now. This is a big deal for our kids, and they've proven that by some of the letters and all that they've written and some of the things I've heard. I'll talk about that in just a second. Parents and athletes, they can opt out. You can say, listen, I'm okay with the practice. I am not going to do this. You have that right. You certainly don't have to play, if you choose not to. We've heard from our community. We've heard from our parents and our kids. And I'm going to try to say this right. I'm not talking about the ones who are screaming the loudest because they think they're right if they yell loudest and they're mad. That's emotion. I get it. I've got a kid. I'm more emotional about my kid. I understand that. But those aren't the ones that resonate in my mind. Those aren't the ones that score points with threats or any of those kind of things. There's been a lot of reasonable people that will speak on this, and they make a lot of sense. And who has really, really resonated with me are the kids. I have seen kids' letters. I have talked to some kids, and I'm so proud of the way that they've done this. Again, can't let kids do it just because they want to. But the way they've handled themselves, we can learn from them. The letters I've seen, many will say, I understand there's another side. I understand there's a safety concern. But we have been doing everything that's been asked of us for over 2 months. In the summer, 100 degrees, we're wearing a mask because that's what we were asked to do. It's worth it to us to make sure we do the right thing so we get a chance to play. And I've read that over and over, and it's so well reasoned. Those are the kind of things you listen to. The soft skills that we have taught our kids. I'm telling you, you have much reason, board members, to be proud of a lot of things. You've probably seen similar letters. But I am so pleased and impressed with some of the things I've seen there. This offers hope. This offers some positivity and some hope to get back to where we hope we're going to get, even as we navigate a pandemic. This offers hope as we try to get back into school. We learn how to handle all these things and learn to deal with them. We understand this is a privilege. So what I'm going to say now is, again, I am going to recommend, and when we get into their session, that we play. I think they've earned the right. I think it's the right thing to do, not without hesitation, with expectations in place. And we're going to talk about those expectations. That's what needs to be understood. This can't just be Jerry Hancock or Josh Staples or Tabby or whoever doing their part. This means kids do their part. This means parents work with us and do their part. This, to make this work or have a chance at working, we all have to be on board that there's going to be some expectations that you may not like. You know, there's some expectations on wearing masks. There's some expectations on crowds and what we have to do to make this work. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but that's kind of my reasoning. I've tried to take you through what worries me, what we've done to get to this point on trying to look at all the information out there, and then the reasons that I think this is the right thing to do moving forward. So, Kathy, I'm gonna let you talk a little, say whatever you need to say or whatever. Then we'll get to Jerry and questions and Donna and whatever.
First of all, I want to say I commend all the athletes that have worked over this summer. I commend them. Like you said, the expectations of being able to be able to practice, to be able to have a sporting event of any kind, you have to really want it to be willing to meet what is required of you. And that's a team effort. Coach Hancock couldn't have done it by himself. He had to have the cooperation of the kids. He had to have the cooperation of the parents. To get to play sports is a privilege. And this year, unfortunately, it did not come without huge expectations. With guidance that changed daily, as Robbie can attest, we get something new every day on every subject. But I've not had any trouble areas with this program during the summer of them practicing at all. I've not had any problems whatsoever with everybody doing what they're supposed to do. A lot of other counties, and I can attest to this, they had trouble with them not meeting the guidelines, and they had to quarantine whole teams and all that kind of stuff. I was very fortunate that I had people that worked together as a team, which is what they're supposed to do. They are a team. Other people had all kinds of issues with everything associated with practices and all that kind of stuff, and no one wanting to make them follow the rules. I have been extremely fortunate in that role. And so they are all to be commended for that. It's never easy to have to follow some of the guidelines that we have to follow. Sometimes it's going to go against what someone believes in personally. Maybe it's a religious thing. But these kids all put that aside, and the parents put it aside so their kids could practice to get to the point to play. And so I commend them for that because they really wanted it, and they brought it. It's not to say that somewhere down the road we might have one or here or there, but we'll address that when it happens. The safety issue is always there, but I can tell you that through contact tracing, that most of the people that we've had, and I've had 600, by the way, over 600 for the entire county, with roughly about 2-something being in the community, that these kids really wanted to play in the aspect that they adhere to the rules, because I have trouble getting just the average Joe to adhere to the rules. And so, you know, it can be gotten from anywhere. And I have said that from day one when people said, where's a hot spot? There are no hot spots. The whole county's a hot spot. You can go to the grocery. You can go anywhere and you can get it. The difference between these kids and the community at large is these kids have went the extra mile to try to make everyone safe by following the rules. Where I have more trouble out of the community following the rules than I do the kids. And I know that sounds strange, but the kids seem to be more reasonable and logical for some reason. And I don't mean that disrespectful to you all, but I'm speaking from the truth because I have lived it since March. I'm always willing to work with you guys in any form or fashion. I will try to help you any way I can. We've worked out all kinds of details, and I'll let Robbie attest to that on how we do contact tracing, how we, use seating charts and all that kind of stuff. And it would be the same for extracurricular activities. Now, will we get a positive case? It won't be a matter of if, it'll probably be a matter of when. But I've said that all along about the entire county. Young people seem to do better with the virus than older people. So, I mean, I'm not saying that we won't get one that'll get really sick, but what I'm trying to tell you is at least this group, whoever's all on this group, has went the extra mile to ensure so far since June that there's not been a problem. And I expect that they will still continue to be that way. Our numbers currently in the county are low. We did have a little bit of a rough patch right after the 4th of July. A lot of that was attributed to people gathering at various different functions during the 4th of July. And our numbers spiked into the 20s for the week because we do an epi curve. But by far and large, our numbers are averaging somewhere between 7 and 10 a week. And none of those are children. None of those are young people. Most of those are all everybody 20 and over.
Kathy, if you're okay, because you've looked at the plan from KHSA, you've looked at that guidance.
Yes.
We've taken that and kind of added some things, tightened up more. So I'm going to I would want your thoughts. I know you got to see it a little bit, but I'm going to let Jerry and Donna talk a little so you can get your thoughts on that, because we tried to fill in some gaps and maybe tighten up a little bit from what we already heard. So Donna, you or Jerry, I know Jerry's met with ADs from other districts to try to get on board and, share ideas and all, like how do you, just a lot of things, crowd control, what are you going to do with all that stuff as well. So if that's cool with you, Kathy, I'm going to let them, and then you can comment on that if you'd like. Then we'll get our board members to hit up any of us as they please. So Donna, I'll turn it over to you now, and I'd like for you and Jerry both to at least talk a little.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic, because this will be my first experience speaking through a mass. So I'm gonna, Sherry, if you can I share a document on here so that I can let others view it as I go over it?
Yes, you can. Right next to the mute button, there's a share.
Yeah, give me just a minute to find the window that I'm looking for, and then I will. Okay, can everyone see what the screen that's up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So here are some guidelines or some expectations after a meeting that Brad Devine, Doug Lloyd, and Jerry Hancock and I met and discussed with Robbie yesterday. You'll see some highlighted areas. I'll talk to you about what those mean here shortly, because those are just some edits that we've had within the last few hours. But here are some of the ideas that we have in place to help make sure that this is a successful transition for our students. First of all, I'll focus on the high school. As of right now, some of the guidance that we have read is that we look at using the 20% seating capacity. For each of our fall sports, that's a different venue at various areas. So for an example, at the football stadium, that would mean that we would permit 1,000 tickets to be sold overall. Our stadium can hold up to 5,000, and 20% of course of that would be 1,000. That would also fall in the same place for our girls and boys soccer, because we use that same facility for those games. When looking at volleyball, to kind of make sure that everyone's on the same page with volleyball, that number 350, many might think, well, that's an awfully small number, knowing that our gym can hold many more than that. You're right. But for volleyball, we are not able to use both sides of the bleachers on the bottom floor as we are in basketball. So therefore, our seating is a bit limited during the volleyball season. So we would be limited to 350 tickets to be sold there. Our cross country does not require tickets to be sold at those events. Those are more for entry fees of teams. However, if you've not ever been to a cross country event, those events are for teams to gather together under their designated tent area so that the kids are together before each of the races. Normally, we have parents there that are making sure that the kids are taken care of and just to be present with their children and sitting in their bag chairs and so forth. This year, the difference for that will be is that parents will not be permitted in that area. It will be just for our student athletes and our coaches. And again, I've already spoken about the boys and girls soccer teams. If you'll notice, I'll just barely hit on the middle school, and again, I'll let Brad or Doug chime in here at any moment, because we are also talking about middle school fall sports and not just high school. But in speaking with Doug today, Doug Lloyd at South Middle, the football stadium there they would be selling 200 tickets. That would be 20% of their capacity there. So as we said, for the spectator guidelines, we would begin at the 20% capacity. If you haven't had a chance to read over some of that guidance that was just sent out, and Jerry can chime in at any moment, but it does throughout the time go up another segment to another percentage, as well as to another percentage in a third segment.
That is suggested. October go up to 30, November go up to 40% of capacity.
And those again are just suggested, but we can continue to hold at the 20% capacity. So that's what we're going to focus on right now, is the 20%. We've also asked that if spectators do not follow these guidelines, we will limit the sporting events to players' immediate family. As kind of if you think of it as a 1, 2, 3 strike and you're out. So the second strike would be if spectators do not follow the guidelines, then we'll limit to players' immediate family. And then strike 3, if families do not follow the guidelines, then no fans will be permitted, and it will only be players.
The kids have worked way, way too hard, I think, to hit them first. I would play without fans, allow them to play before, you know, we take them out of the situation.
Right. We talked about that yesterday, and you know, our number one goal here is to allow the kids to play. That's what we're trying to do. That's number one. Number two, we hope we can have some fans to see them play. It's good for the kids. You know, I would want to go see my son play, you know, but for that to happen, I mean, they're going to follow the guidelines, wear the mask and all that. And if that's too hard to police, we'll have to back down, because again, number one is the kids on the field or on the court, to get them a chance to play. But we're hoping people will work with us and we can continue to do this. But we wanted to put it out early. If it doesn't work out, that's what we'll be forced to do.
So as we continue on, obviously when our spectators come, we will have temperature checks upon entering to the games. We will be asking spectators to wear masks when entering any athletic event. And at this time, we are asking that the mask remain on during the athletic event. If these guidelines cannot be followed, again, we'll ask them to leave. As we continue on, along with that, we will not be selling season tickets at this time due to the capacity issue. So we'll be instructing that spectators ages 6 and above will have to purchase a ticket to attend the game, and that children of any age must remain with their family, and or with an adult. And if their families cannot do that, again, we'll unfortunately have to ask them to leave that athletic event. One of the things that we have seen, whether it be volleyball, football, basketball, we know kids like to be kids, and our parents want to watch their high school kids or middle school kids play, but they trust their younger ones to maybe go play with the little Nerf ball or over to the side. But this is going to be one of those times that they have to remain as one unit. They will sit together as one unit. They will watch the game together as one unit. Students will not be permitted to attend without an accompanying adult. That's for any age student. We will not, unfortunately, be able to have a student section. Again, we want to make sure that the social distancing guidelines are being followed, and as well as wearing the mask. And we want to make this about our student athletes, because as we've all said many times, they have worked too hard in following the guidelines up to this point. We all know that oftentimes our football events in the fall are some of our largest attended events, so we are going to develop a plan of how to pre-sell those tickets beforehand. Our visiting teams will be allotted around 250 tickets, and Mr. Hancock will work with those visiting teams on how they will pre-sell those tickets. And then Muhlenberg County High School will pre-sell 750 tickets prior to the game. And again, this is one of those times that we've all been a bit spoiled prior to COVID, that if we're an employee, that we've been able to show our badge and be able to come into the athletic event. We've made this about our kids. And so to make it about our kids, we feel like we can be more controlled about the number of people attending. So that way we've limited that. And we got to also think about here, we're talking about sports. I mean, this is also an opportunity for our marching band to be able to play before the attending crowds as well. You know, they don't have a season, but we've had some kids to still want to come and practice, and so that they can have like a football marching season, or excuse me, a football marching season, much like college. And so we have those kids that would provide them an opportunity to be able to do that. As I've already stated, the social distancing will be enforced for families, and we'll ask that families from the same household sit together. Our concession stands, again, as part of the guidance from KHSAA and various health departments or health agencies, we will be selling pre-packaged food from the concessions. And from what I understand, again, Brad or Doug, please jump in, that at this time, middle schools will not have concessions. The one thing that everyone has to understand when holding these games, that they could be canceled at any time. It could be up to 15 minutes right before the game because a student athlete could be showing symptoms. And we obviously want to make sure that our student athletes and our coaches stay healthy and safe. That may cause some issues early on with some of the refunds. They won't be given at that particular time of the cancellation, but we'll make sure that we communicate how those refunds can be handled. And obviously, when we get to the point to where if the board so chooses to approve us to move forward with fall sports, we'll continue to keep this particular guidance updated through the communication of Muhlenberg County Board of Education, as well as Kathy at the Health Department and any other governmental agencies. So that's kind of the plan that we have developed at this point. If anyone has any questions, and again, I ask if Jerry or Brad Devine or Doug Lloyd has anything they would like to add.
Also, just in case you do hear any complaining from other places, and what I mean by complaining, everybody has their own little niches or things they have to do as far as size of their gym, size of the facility. So everybody has just a little bit different rules than what we do. So everybody has kind of formed the rules to make it fit to what their needs are. So you may get questions about that, but not everybody's going to be the same as far as capacity, as far as the numbers they let in. Some teams take more care of their home team, some teams don't. So it just is what it is.
Jerry, you have met with other districts ADs though, correct? And y'all poured through the document and discussed this extensively.
Yes, matter of fact, that's where I've been at an AD meeting today. We met last week and we met 2 weeks before. While not everything is the same that we're all doing, we all are pretty much in agreement to how we're going to do things.
Similarity goes a long way when looking at things like this. So we may not be the same, but we'll be very similar.
Yeah. One of the questions I have, and I don't know if I can ask a question or not, I do know, and you may have already discussed this, travel, and I'll give you what some of the other schools are doing so we can consider it, such as Hancock County, they're taking 22 on a bus. Owensboro schools are taking 30. Most of the other schools in the region are doing 1 per seat, all mask, all of them are masked. Of course, we were looking at it, us and McLean were looking at it totally different. So we were only going to be able to take, probably 10 to 12 kids on a bus. So that's something I think that we need to look at anyway.
Jerry, I'll let Kathy speak here, but you should know she has really been working on this even today on trying to get some answers for this. So Kathy, I'll turn it over to you now, but I do want them to know this is something that we've been talking about already.
Well, this was kind of thrown out at us this week again, so that's the reason it's a hot topic.
Yeah, things get thrown out all of a sudden spontaneously all the time. So, that's my life. So I understand that. First of all, I want to say that your plans won't all be the same as other districts, and I don't expect it to. You guys have to do what's right for our kids. So while they may be similar in circumstances, our kids are our kids. And so we have to take care of our county, our kids, the way it fits for us. So I commend you for working extremely hard on that. One of the things that there was a meeting yesterday, and I know that originally it came out, and I went back and listened to it today because I had some questions about it. The Christian County Health Department director, she seemed to feel like that you could put one kid per seat on the bus. And so did the Hopkins County one. But then I also know that some of them thought that you had to go by the bus chart. The way I understood it was they were saying that originally the reason why they said going to and from school, you could do all the seats, full capacity, as long as you did from back to front. And the mom asked was because the school system would have to do double and triple runs, some of them. So they just made it kind of standard for everybody, that everybody could do everybody on the bus. And that later, when it came back to this away game thing, they decided that, well, you know, the biggest reason why you were having to do that was because of those double and triple runs. You wouldn't have enough buses, but they decided that for sports activities, you would have enough buses. Now, personally, I have reached out to Dr. White myself. I'm waiting for her to respond back to me, but I did talk to the other health department directors. And my understanding is they're going to put one team member per seat on the bus. That's what they're going to do. I'm waiting on her to get back with me. Of course, the decision is yours and what you decide you want to do as far as that goes. Now, personal thoughts, I think it's illogical when they're going to be sitting on a bench together and they're going to be touching and playing football to say that you have to have 8 kids on a bus that'll hold the whole, you know what I'm saying? I think it's
Our
illogical.
bus holds 72.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's illogical to say when they're going to be touching other people because they're going to be playing a game and they're going to be on a bench together. I think that making that 6 feet distance on the bus for an away game when you don't make it for going to and from school, I think that's a little excessive. Of course, not to, not to mention that you guys would have to take what, 3 buses, 4 buses to
4
one
buses
game?
possibly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Davis County Club takes up to 7 buses to a game.
Yeah, I mean, so that decision's totally up to you guys. I do know that that's the way that Hopkins and Christian County is leaning, is they're going to put 1 student in each seat.
And they
That's
will
how
run
they're gonna
that
handle it.
seat there and back. They will have the same seat, and we will do
Yes.
a seating chart.
Right, and that's what they're doing. They're going to do seating charts and keep them in the same seat as well. So, I mean, what you decide to do is up to you. You know, my personal thoughts is like what I share with you. That's my personal thought, is that I think it's illogical to change it for the away game when you're doing it another way to bring them to and from school. But that's my personal thought.
And Kathy, to be honest, and you and I both know it, and Jerry knows it, the guidance could change tomorrow.
Yes, it can. And it often does. So I did throw that out there to her. I'm just waiting for her to respond back to me because of my personal feelings about that. I just think that, as long as they're wearing their mask and they're keeping their mask on and they're 1 person per seat, I don't really have an issue with that. I just think the other one is being a little excessive when we're not doing that to and from school.
And Kathy, if we can, if that is the route we go, then on a 72 passenger bus, if we put 1 kid or 1 person per seat, that would be about 44 students. And so that would help us out a great deal.
Right. And like I said, it ends up being up to you guys to pick what you want to do. But I think that having 1 person per seat is not unreasonable.
24, right?
And I think that wouldn't be bad at all.
I'm sorry, I was corrected. 24. 24. My fault. 24. My fault.
Yeah.
But it would keep you from having to take 10 buses to a game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, all right, thank you, Kathy and Jerry, and let's open it up to our board members now and get their thoughts and try to answer any questions or whatever. Can you stick around a little longer, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay.
I can stay till about 3:30.
Okay.
Thank you for addressing the bus situation. That was one of my questions I had to Mr. Davis. I would like to specifically address athletes coming to our fields and playing with our students, and how we can assure that the coaches have indeed made certain that those students are COVID-19 free when they come to our facility.
So I can tell you what other health departments do. If the kids are positive, they are automatically isolated, and anyone associated with that positive is quarantined. Now, as far as taking temperatures and all that stuff, you guys will have to work that out ahead of time with them. I don't know if you want to ask them up front, what is it that you're specifically doing to ensure the safety? Are you taking their temperatures before you put them on the bus to bring them over here? I mean, you'll have to ask what their process is.
Football team.
And Kim, if I may, Mr. Davis, and Kim, I think that was you that asked that question. If you'll permit Jerry to kind of address that question, because that's some of the agreements that the athletic directors in our third region have come to, and that they have come up with a little bit of a process.
Okay, and along with that question, I also ask about forfeitures. If one or several of the student athletes on the other team or on our team do come down with COVID-19, are we prepared to forfeit games? And are they prepared to forfeit games as well? So I'll close off my microphone and let you answer that.
Yes, also a chance for maybe just a small group and not even.
Okay.
Okay. On the first part of the question, each school, before they leave to come to our school, they will do the temperature checks. Each coach has been assigned a certain group of kids. So they will check their group before they get on the bus. If their temperature is good, they will get on the bus and they'll proceed. The other part of the question is, as far as forfeiture, yes, that is pretty much an agreement across the state. Ray may want to touch on that as far as, and we've talked about this as far as the little groups where you may not have to get a whole team.
Yeah, I've talked to our team physician, Dr. Jody Mitchell, and we'll work with Kathy, obviously, at the health department. So if we have a contest with another team, whether it's soccer or football, and we'll work closely with the health department, if we have an affected individual on another team, we'll find out what the effect of that is and work with Kathy and find out whether there needs to be a shutdown or a partial shutdown and find out who the affected individual was and who came into close contact. So, but we'll work with the other athletic director and see who we need to contact on our team as well. So.
And I would assume, go ahead. I'm sorry, Robbie.
I'm sorry. I'm saying, I guess the bottom line, Kim, is we would err on the side of caution on that. If we weren't sure, we would just forfeit the game. Just like when we do get back into school, we know there's going to be days when things come up and we have to close school. And it'd be similar here. I don't think we would hesitate to do that if needed.
That was my main concern as well, because I agree with everything Mr. Davis said earlier about the efforts that's been put forth this summer by the students, and the coaches and our leadership team have full confidence and appreciate Kathy's guidance along the way in that. But that was my concern too, the other teams and how are they being monitored, and if we hear or see, they are not following guidelines. So I appreciate that. My other question on transportation is parents transporting, is that an option?
That's a good question. I'll jump in first, Susan. That's something we're looking into. We want to make sure we are following all the legalities and we're doing everything right there. We are looking at that, and that may very well be an option where we give, but if we do that, then there has to be things in place there. They can't be taking someone else's kid in the car with them. It would have to be just their child brothers maybe or something like that. So if we did that, we'll make sure we're in total compliance legally. And Kathy says that makes sense to me. So yeah, I think, Susan, that's something that we will consider.
Thank you.
Very well said, everybody. Thank you for your time. I think being a community leader, we are the one need to show some light in future for our kids. I've been watching some of the teams practicing and so forth. So far, what I have noticed, and I've shared with other people, that they are minding the rules and regulations, and there are going to be some who are not. All I beg for is everything to go safe and sound. And let's hope that we make a right decision for the community and the kids.
I'd like to say something to Mr. Hancock. I want to thank him he called me one day last week and I asked him about spit guards and masks. He said, well, I hadn't really thought nothing about it, but I'll check into it. He called me back about 45 minutes later and said, they're on the way. Everybody will have one and everybody on the bench will have a mask to stay covered up. So I commend them all for working so hard to try to keep the kids safe and do what's necessary. I appreciate Robbie, Donna, everybody concerned with this. Kathy, I really appreciate the work that you've done. I know it's a lot of extra work, but I appreciate what you do. Thank you all very much.
Hey, Daryl, I want you to understand that Jerry's next call was to us and said, can you pay for all this? He didn't tell you that.
Well, you know who else called you too.
I know.
So one of my concerns, as is Kim's, people coming into our community playing sports and how we were going to require them to follow our guidelines as well. And hopefully their guidelines are similar enough to where it's not going to be a problem. But Muhlenberg County's been doing really well on their numbers as far as I can tell. And, just thinking about our kids and introducing us to areas that are much higher numbers than we are, and vice versa, them coming here and bringing that into our area that's doing quite well. That's been a concern of mine. I've gotten lots of messages, emails, texts, different things like everyone else, from all the athletes, parents, teachers, just really impressed with their sincerity and their heartfelt, emotions in those emails, asking for us to approve them to play sports. And, as a COVID nurse, I see the bad things that can happen with this disease and illness. I see normal, healthy people come in that have been exposed through children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, whatever, at whatever gathering or wherever they've been to. So I've kind of seen all of that. I feel like I'm well-rounded in the fact that I can take all of those and kind of weigh out, what's best for us. But, the main thing that sticks out for me is, the mental health of the kids. And, they've been working hard all summer. And, as school board members, our goal is to have the best kids that we can have and the best education we can give them. And with the education, we do have athletics. And the mental health of the athletics is that they strive hard, they work hard, they get the reward in the end. And for our athletes, the reward in the end is for them to get to play their sport, whether or not they win the game or they don't. So I feel like, supporting the athletics at this time, is going to be a positive towards their mental health. If we don't approve it, then what's going to happen to these kids? Are they going to lose their drive? Are they going to lose their motivation, their ambition for the things that they love? And we hate to see that. We want to have a motivation. We want to have a goal, and we want to have that reward at the end. So there's no right or wrong way. There's so many things we've all learned. I mean, and as Kathy said, it has changed daily. I know it has changed daily in my job. It has changed daily with our school system. It has changed daily worldwide. It's just not us. It's not here in Kentucky. It's not just Muhlenberg County. It's everyone. We've all had to learn a different way of life and, different ways to do things and safer ways to do things when we normally wouldn't have had to think about, well, gosh, I'm going outside the house. What do I need to do now? So I feel like, that even though there's a lot of risk out there, I know we're going to have positive cases. We're probably going to have positive cases for the future to come. I don't know how that's going to work out, but we will have positive cases, and we just have to make the best decision today, our board members, for our kids, and to keep their safety first, and remember, what is the most important thing here. So, and that's my thoughts.
I forgot to thank the students who wrote to me many emails beside the parents. I was so impressed, and I think I shared a couple of the words with Mr. Davis on a couple of the kids I can't name, but very appalled. And how the community at this time came together for one good cause, sports. I wish, let's make, how they have a hashtag, let's play. Next one should be let's study and get everybody in town community involved more about education, just in the same speed we are about the sports.
Yes, I agree, Roger. And I want to thank the students and parents that have reached out through email and contact. I really appreciate, and it was just inspiring to hear from the students. So always feel free to reach out.
What I think is important for our community to know, whoever's watching this is not a slam dunk, something we just let's just do it kind of thing. This is stressful, and this is hard, and it's not, well, we get all it, we get differing viewpoints, and you have to, it seems like this COVID thing, everything's in that gray area, and you have to weigh things and make a decision. And this is another one of those things. Yes, I think it's best that we move forward. But I hope folks understand the stress on board members and the stress on coaches and all to make this work. And kids, we're doing our best to make this work for you. You've done your part. You've done your part, or else we wouldn't be having this conversation. If not for you doing what you've done all summer long on those super hot days and all that kind of stuff. So that's my thing. I just want our folks to know, I know emotions run high on things, but we're trying to do right, and we're trying to weigh things and make sure it's an informed decision. But I'll say again and again, my recommendation would not be this without what the kids have already done and with what our coaches have done, proven that they deserve this privilege, this chance, because they've been going at this for I think over 2 months. Jerry could tell you when it exactly started. I've lost track of time altogether, but it's been a while. And so I want our folks to know, board members are in contact with me all the time. They're asking questions. They are involved. They want to do what's right. A little plug here. I'm fortunate. We're fortunate with our board members. We've been talking this for the last 2 weeks, and every time there's an update, we talk again. And there's likely an update that we've missed since we started this meeting today. That's where we live now. And just be ready. If we do this, yes, a game could be canceled 15 minutes prior to game time with a call from Kathy. Or maybe not a call from Kathy. Maybe something we know that hasn't got to Kathy yet.
Which happens. That happens.
It does happen.
It does happen.
And we'll shut it down as needed. So, again, that's kind of where we're at. I'm done on this subject for now. But, again, we'll discuss it as long as you want. I just want our folks to know that our board members are involved and their hearts are right, and it's not simple and it's not easy as maybe somebody on Facebook may say it is. Everything's kind of complicated now because we also are in charge of their health, and so we're weighing some things, and that's where we are now when we go back to school, and I hope to do that soon. We're still shooting for the 21st. we're gonna meet next week to discuss that. You're weighing things when you do that. You know, that's the world we live in now. There's no slam dunks. I've told some it's hard for me to decide what to have for supper anymore. You know, okay, everything's tougher, you know, but our kids are driving this. Our kids have done their part, which makes me think they'll continue to do their part. And other comments before we talk about roofing?
I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be on here, and that you guys can always reach out to me anytime. If you don't have my cell number, Robbie does. He'll be happy to share it with you. I'm always available if you need anything or have a question. Guidance changes daily. That's why we end up talking daily, whether we mean to or not. Robbie and I usually talk at least once a day, if not twice. But I'm always available. I don't mind to help any way that I can. And I'm here if you need me. So I'm going to get off because I have to be somewhere else in 5 minutes.
Thank you, Kathy,
Thank
for
you,
everything.
Kathy.
Thank you,
Thank
Kathy.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stephanie, do you think we're ready to talk building repairs?
I was making sure there was no other
Yeah.
comments there
Okay.
with the lag, you know, so,
Right.
okay. Yes, we will move on down to discuss our possible building repairs. Eric?
We've got the roofing at both of the gyms at East and West Campus, and Donna can attest to this, that the water comes in when it rains and it goes down the side of the block, and it'll drip on the upper mezzanines. What we want to do is get those replaced. They have done scans on the roof themselves. There has not been water penetration into the insulation portion at this time. However, if the water does penetrate into the insulation, it's a full tear off, and that's the big scare on that. So it nearly doubles the price. So the other portion of this is that as the water runs down the block, it weakens the block as well. So I don't know if you've ever seen like a basement that's got a block basement, that when the water comes in, it weakens that block, and that block starts chipping away. Well, that could potentially occur with the walls of the gym, so we don't want that since they're supporting a significant amount of weight. But what we're wanting to do is get these roofs a new top layer put on. It adds a 20-year warranty to that. We need to get it done this fall, because if we start getting the weight of the snow and that sort of thing on it, that can also increase the possibility of the penetration of the water into that insulation. The other part of the warranty is that at the end of 20 years, they also let me know that basically we could put another top coat brush on, and that extends the warranty another 10 years. So we could get a 30-year roof. So it's kind of where that's at. So I mean, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
What was the cost of that, Eric?
It's about 500,000. So it's not cheap, but it's the full tear off is 900 to $1 million.
Yeah. So is that for each one or for
No,
both?
that's for both.
Okay.
So basically, East and West, both high schools got to be done.
Yes, sir.
That'll give
They're
you
both-
almost 30 years.
They're both magically out of warranty. So right now,
Magically. Always. That's our luck.
you know.
How many bids you got?
And I've got to commend Jimmy and his team. I mean, they do a lot to even just try to patch things and get things to where it extends the life of it. But right now we're at the point where, you know, little fixes are not working. I went up there last spring before the pandemic, basically. I think it was around February time frame. So it's not really spring, but regardless. Went up there with Jimmy and the roofing folks, and we looked at the trouble areas, and it's just a matter of there's seams that are in that material that are splitting, and there's really nothing that can be done without just really recovering it and doing the new roof system on that.
Well, how many bids you got?
Say that again.
Did you get multiple bids?
What we're going to do with that is we are going to do it through the purchasing cooperative. So they're on the Kentucky State bid list, and they have a, you know, Tremco is the company that we buy the materials from, and they have preferred builders that they use, but they're all on the state bid list. And one of the companies that we're looking at to have them do the work did the work on another one of our buildings, and they're good to work with. They're reliable. They show up when they say they're going to show up, which is huge. I mean, you guys know this. You know, I want a contractor that says, I'm going to be there on Monday. They're going to be here on Monday. So that's who Tremco, and Jimmy and I have been able to talk with them and say, hey, you know, we don't want these folks, or we do want these folks. So that's how we're going about it.
Okay, thank you.
We're not voting today. This is just information to be thinking about. So if you have any questions, it'll be on the next board meeting. It's an agenda item on that.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we're going to go down to discussion of our emergency leave. Ms. Browning.
Good afternoon, everybody. Basically, it's been probably a few weeks ago, I sent you all a packet of information on the emergency leaves and some things to consider. So we've kind of swung back around to reconsider those options and whether or not we want to move forward or have some discussion on whether we might want to initiate this emergency leave. So I know you guys have had a chance to review all the information I had sent. If you have any questions, we'll try to address those or get answers if we don't have them.
And what we know is going to happen, folks, is we know that there's going to be folks that have to be out for, you know, quarantines, or there actually are a positive case. And so how do we handle that? You know, do they have to take sick days, or do they already have some 10 federal days, correct, correct, Melody? And so do we want to add some to that? Now, if you start adding a bunch, I mean, it gets a little tricky if the district has to end up paying a ton of that. And so that is a worry, just be open and honest, that we want to do right by our folks at the same time. And in many cases, if you're not sick or super sick, you can teach virtually. You can do some things virtually, which it's easier in some jobs than others. We would try to work with them as best we can, but you know, there are different options out there. Just want you thinking about it, and we'll have a proposal for you to kick around, or a couple, or at our next meeting. But we'll just talk about this a little bit. Again, what's right by the district and right by our folks. Where's that fine line? And that's what we're trying to do. So just want to give you a little heads up on that we will probably have that on the next board meeting agenda as well. And we'll be sending you stuff out as we get more examples from other districts and guidance from our lawyers or whatever, or guidance from the state. So that we'll keep sending that to you so we can make the most informed decision we can on that here in a couple of weeks.
And I will just piggyback on that. If you go through the packet of information, as you go through it and review it, when we get nearer to time and we start looking at different conditions that we want to put, if we choose to do this, that we want to put in our resolution that we could possibly pass. In those packets, you're going to see that several different districts, there basically are 6 reasons that could be used. There's as many as 6. There's more if you want to identify them, but most of them are sticking to the reasons that were identified in the federal law. They're not varying much from that. Some are doing fewer. Most of the districts that we've heard from have not limited it to or extended it to a number of certain days. They've given that discretion to the superintendent, with those conditions being put on it that the superintendent within that parameter can approve those additional days. So those are a couple of areas that you may want to think about, is what do we want to be able to cover with our leave that would extend leave for our employees who have already exhausted the other leave. Another thing to consider is this leave goes through the end of the school year. The federal leave only goes through December 31st. So that's a couple of important things we're taking care. If we choose to do this, we're caring for our employees through the rest of this year as we get into the cold and flu season or whatever comes after December. So those are some considerations. And as you start reviewing these things, probably the next steps for me is communication on what do you really want to put in there as far as what conditions do we want to meet. The resolution itself is pretty standard on everything, the whereas and the heretofores and all that, but those conditions that you want to put in are probably the major component of this. And
one thing you want to do, if we can, I'll suggest that we leave a little leeway for me to make a judgment call. Let's just say we have someone, God forbid, that does, it gets in, they're in the hospital for a while or something happens. I would like to have the ability to cover them, even though it may be just one case, maybe it's 30 days. Stephanie knows as well as anybody how that can go. So we'll probably make a proposal that gives me some wiggle room in some specific cases, so we take care of employees that need to be taken care of.
I was approached just this week by a district employee who had asked, what if they were quarantined for 14 days and then they came back to work and then maybe, a week or a month later or whatever had a re-exposure and had to be quarantined again, what about their sick time and things like that. So, I know the district employees, are thinking about that. So as we get ready to try to go back to school, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll go on down now to the superintendent report and discussion. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Chairman Rager. I won't take long on this one. I do just want to talk about, we've been sitting on September 21st, hoping to go back for a while. And glad we made that call when we did. That's one of them that seemed like it worked out okay. As of now, I still would like to consider moving forward with that. But to do that, we need to give them a little lead time, our folks, some lead time, to prepare for that, and staff and community parents. So I would like to maybe meet maybe the end of next week. I think we've talked a little bit about maybe next Friday where I would make that proposal. And guys, we were sitting really in a pretty good place until about 48 hours ago. And we had communicated over and over. One of the positives about this A-B schedule was, you keep your numbers down. And so one group goes Monday and Tuesday, everybody's off Wednesday, we clean, we do our thing. And then another group goes Thursday and Friday. Well, you got groups separated in case we need a quarantine. You got smaller numbers on the bus, smaller numbers to feed in person, smaller numbers in the classroom. And one of the things that we were able to really talk about was that, hey, in the classroom, a big positive, if you've got small enough numbers where you can socially distance, then you can take your mask off. That was our guidance. It's been our guidance for 3+ months. We planned with that in mind. We told our parents that. Our parents have already opted on this first round. Whenever we go, do you want to do A/B or not? They've already made that choice. It's in the computer. So we felt good about it all. We felt good like, hey, if we go the 21st, then we're ready. And if we go after fall break, we're ready. 48 hours ago, out of the blue, they come down and say, oh, well, we've changed our mind. Now, if you even have 3 in a room, you got to wear your mask the whole time. Just like that. And that changed the game for a lot of parents. That changed the game for ones who said, hold it, I thought my kid was going to get a chance to not have to wear a mask potentially. So that's very frustrating. I'm just going to be honest here. I try not to get that way. But we planned for a long time based on that guidance. And I don't know what caused it to change. And I will say, I know I don't do Facebook, but you hear, some parents are really angry at us or even at teachers. Teachers had nothing to do with this. And honestly, we didn't either. This guidance, this is as frustrating for us as it is for everyone else because, I don't know why it changed. But it did, and now that's the law of the land. And could it change back? Maybe. There's a lot of superintendents really kind of, giving our thoughts on this. And, we wish we had known as we planned. So now we've had to put it back out on Facebook and say, hey, here's the new rule. And if you opt now to not send your child because of that concern, let us know and we'll work with you on that. And that's caused a lot of frustration in our community, and I get it. I feel the same way. I understand they changed guidance because they think they need to. But we were on a meeting not too long ago. Matt was watching something as I'm meeting with principals. The guidance literally changed. Am I correct, Matt? 3 times in 15 minutes? I think it did. Matt's not looking at me. I believe it did. Never mind.
Sorry, Robbie. I'm listening to the governor at the same time. I got 2 things going on in here.
Oh, good. That's
is,
the way it was. I was talking about our guidance changing 3 times in 15 minutes, and that's what you were doing then. You were watching something from the governor or from our health folks. So I apologize to our parents. I apologize to our kids and all that thought they had that in place and had that option with those rules. And now that they said, no, can't go by that anymore, I don't have the option, as I see it, to just say, no, we're going to ignore it. I don't think we even have that option. I don't know anybody that is. So that's frustrating. And again, I apologize, parents. I apologize that it happened that way. I wish it had not. It's frustrating for us as well. But having said all that, unless something changes, I would like to get with you guys at the end of next week to make the proposal that we start on September 21st and an A/B schedule for those 2 weeks before fall break. I think the question we need to consider, not necessarily today, but is, do we go ahead and go back all virtual the 2 weeks after fall break, knowing that we're going to go places and do things and maybe get some quarantines and all that. Several districts are electing to do that. I don't think that's a bad idea. I don't know if the Florida will be off the list or not by then, but regardless, we know on fall break we're going everywhere and then we're coming back. So is it wise after fall break to just say, all right, we're going to do virtual for a couple of weeks, basically quarantining for 14 days, and then try to start back into the AB? So that's something to consider. Don't have to make a call now, but I wanted to bring all that up and let you know my thoughts and kind of get to say to parents, and as much as I can, I hate it. I do apologize. I wish it had not happened that way. We're not really happy about it either. We want our kids back in school, and that's a thing that, although I understand the safety thing, I understand they've got reasoning, it did change the game in the middle.
All right. Okay, drum roll. We're going to go down to the item on the agenda to vote, and I'm going to do a roll call just so we can be clear in what our vote is. So this is to consider accepting the KHSAA recommendations for fall sports. And we've all had some discussion. Is there any further discussion before we take a vote?
I have a statement that I'd like to talk about very quickly.
Okay.
As quickly as possible.
Take your time.
First of all, I want to say that I, of all people, understand firsthand the importance of sports and physical fitness. As a lifelong athlete, I get it. The years of dedication to a sport it takes to receive a scholarship or the ultimate professional athlete title, professional being that is your job, is the ultimate. As many of you know, I represent that segment of the population, and therefore I get it better than most. Mr. Davis and I have had conversations about this on many occasions. There have been so many comments on the social media platforms from people who don't even have an athlete in their family, and they've pontificated their opinions of the school board and our vote today before we even get a chance to vote. What I will say about this is that many of you have sent personal letters and emails apologizing for the folks who have basically damned us before we even get to vote. We serve on this board because each of us desire to represent the parents, the students, the teachers, and the administrators in this county. We make decisions that I dare say most would never want the responsibility for. It is not an easy place to be, but we continue to serve because of our genuine care for the education of the whole child, academically, personally, emotionally, physically, and now most importantly, their health, as many of us have already said. That being said, this vote, surprisingly to me, has been the vote that we received letters about. I didn't receive one single letter or email about when school would start. And going back to what Rajiv said, that is something that we seriously need to consider in this county. I did receive some texts from teachers about when school would start and their worries about the safety for not only themselves, but mostly for the students that they serve. I did, however, receive 6 letters and emails regarding sports, 2 from parents and 4 from student athletes. Now, because I was a teacher in Muhlenberg County, I know that each and every one of you students know how to write a persuasive paragraph, and I'm telling you, I'm very disappointed that I did not get more. I was expecting 50 or more. But those that did write to me said everything that I truly believe with all of my heart as an athlete. That it's a privilege to play and to have the camaraderie with your team, because your team is your extended family. They push you to be your very best. And the extra push gives some students who don't really like school a reason to go to school because they get to play the sport they love. The possibility of scholarships, which I know every student athlete knows, the NCAA is most likely to recruit you during your sophomore or junior year. That leaves your senior year to run your numbers up and show what you've got. I get it. I also believe that our administrators and coaches, when they assure me that they're going to do everything that they can in their power to protect the students under their watch, I believe them, and I trust that they're going to do that. I've read volumes of documentation, maybe even more than Mr. Davis, about playing it safe and the spread of COVID-19 in each sport. I've studied the list of sports and the rankings according to risk, but the word risk is what most concerns me. And the fact that our state and federal government has left this incredibly important decision to our local boards is quite frankly baffling to me. And baffling is the nicest word I can think of on this subject. The fact that there's a global pandemic happening on this planet is not something we can or should ignore. And I'll also say that just because you choose to not believe in something does not mean it cannot harm you or your family, and it does not make you immune. I have 3 brothers who have been referring to COVID-19 as the election flu for the past few months, until this past Sunday, when my nephew, who had gone to a fellowship of Christian athletes on the campus of the University of Oklahoma. The athletes wore face masks and stayed 6 feet apart. And on Monday, my nephew went to visit his sister, who also just graduated with a master's degree from the University of Oklahoma. She is a type 2 diabetic. While he was visiting her, he received a phone call from the young man he had ridden to the meeting with. That young man had just tested positive for COVID-19. Even though all precautions were taken, my nephew told me that he felt the entire world close in around him when he heard those words, just because he was standing in his sister's apartment, a type 2 diabetic in an immunocompromised condition. And lastly, I will share a couple more thoughts with you. Many of you know that my eldest brother has been hospitalized over the past month in a grave condition. He's been in a sterile environment the entire time. He has only had one visitor, my youngest brother, who lives nearby. Yesterday, my eldest brother, who has been in the hospital with congestive heart failure and several other life-threatening conditions, was put on a ventilator. Because after 4 negative COVID-19 tests, he is now tested positive and can no longer breathe on his own. So today I will abstain from this vote, not because I do not care about the students of this county or because I do not want the backlash from voting no, and especially not because I'm a coward. And those of you who know me know that. I'm abstaining because I am going to let the parents decide how much risk they're willing to take with their own children, not me. That decision should never have been in my position or any other person sitting on this board, given this unprecedented time in our nation's history. By not saying no to fall sports, I am leaving the responsibility of assuring the safety of each student athlete to the parents and the athletes themselves. And I believe that you will take that responsibility very seriously, as you already have and as you have already proven to us. Parents, I urge you to make absolutely certain that you follow your athlete and that you follow and your athlete follows the guidelines put forth by the Muhlenberg County School principals and the athletic directors. If you travel, please make certain you and your athlete quarantine for the required number of days. Again, the responsibility of keeping all students safe in this county truly does rest on your shoulders. I thank you for listening, And if you have any comments or concerns, I ask respectfully that you comment to me personally and directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Well said, Kim.
Thank you.
And I would just like to say through all this, I have struggled as well because it's a huge responsibility. I mean, there's not a good answer. There's not a right answer. And 1 minute I think one way and another minute I think the other way. And accountability is the top of my priority list. But after prayerfully considering this and knowing our district leadership, our teachers, our coaches, and our students, I'm trusting that, and I believe that we will do the right thing in our district, and I think we'll hold other districts accountable and not let them come into our area if there's any doubt at all. That's the basis of my decision.
Awesome.
And I'm just going to go ahead and comment, and then we'll, see if we can get a motion on the floor for the vote. I just, I think I've spoke to Robbie this week, and I've noticed that some of the teachers and staff have chosen a word for the year as their word of focus. And so I feel like mine at this point is expectations from a parent, from a board member, just a community person in general. I think we all have expectations of ourselves right now, and we have expectations of others. So I feel like if our vote today goes in favor of playing sports, we have expectations for you parents, you community leaders and athletes, students, everyone. Everyone should have expectations to maintain the most safety that we can provide for everyone involved. At first I was also mixed about this vote. I just felt like, well, if we can't go to school and be in school, how can we play sports? However, then I got to thinking, well, they've been practicing. They've been doing what they were supposed to be doing. You can't knock that. So I completely understand the concerns and the hesitations of some of the students and staff and parents who are not in favor of playing sports. And I'm hoping that if today's vote does pass, that, we will be back in school soon for our students' sake. We all know that it's best for our kids to be in school to get the best education. And we're all here for that reason, to give our kids the best education. So with that being said, is there anything else? If not, I'll need a motion and a second to put to vote.
I make a motion that we play sports this year with Lord's blessing, that we all stay safe and stay committed to what everybody has committed to, including coaches, principals, superintendent, assistant superintendents, and board members. We need to bring out safety every time we see something not being done right and stay concerned. So my vote is yes, and I make a motion.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Bowers. I am going to go and do a roll call at this time just to be clear on who is voting what. Ms. Bard?
I abstain.
Abstain. Mr. Johar?
Vote yes.
Vote yes. Mr. Bowers?
I vote yes.
Vote yes. Ms. Wells?
I vote yes.
And I will also vote yes at this time. So all in favor of accepting the KHSAA recommendations for fall sports, please say aye.
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 All opposed? I hear none, and we have one vote to abstain. So the motion passes. We will have fall sports. And the next motion, I need to adjourn. And thank you all, everyone, for your thoughts and concerns, and all you parents, kids, everyone out there. I know there's been a lot of feelings going around out there, so we appreciate everyone reaching out to us, and we want you to feel comfortable reaching out to us for anything in the future. Don't always believe everything you see on Facebook or what you hear. Go straight to the horse's mouth. We're glad to talk to anyone at any time. So at this time, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A second by Mr. Johar. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I hear none, and we are adjourned. Thank you all.